In today's video, I'm talking about a decision that you are probably having trouble making. I know I've had trouble making it and several of my brides have too. And that is whether you should hire a full service florist or if you should do your flowers yourself. Hey bridal beauties, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, I'm Kyle James. Today's video we're talking all about your wedding flowers. Specifically whether you should do them yourself or if you should hire a pro. I'll go through the different pros and cons of each of those. So if you are in the midst of this decision-making process, please give this video a thumbs up and let me know. And let's dive right in. So the first thing that we need to know before we do anything else with our wedding flowers is our budget. I stress this in every single one of my videos. It is so important that you know your budget before you do anything, because if you don't, you will probably end up spending way more than you intended to. I do have a couple videos on wedding budget, including one that walks you through how to lay out your entire budget. I will link that below, and that has a free worksheet as well. So be sure that you grab that free worksheet and figure out your budget and figure out how much you have to spend on each category before you start trying to book your vendors. So once you have an idea of how much you have to spend on your wedding florals, then you can start weighing the decision as to whether you should hire a professional full-service florist or you should do them yourself. So a few things to take into consideration when you're deciding whether you should hire a florist or do them yourself is A, your budget. If you have a budget over $3,000 for flowers, I highly recommend just going and hiring a professional. If you don't have the time to put into this, if you're super busy with your career or whatever else you have going on, then you might want to consider a full-service florist as well. If you have a budget of at least $1,500, I would say that a professional is still an option and you'll still get the full wedding floral package. But anything less than that, you're going to either want to do them yourself or you're just not gonna have very much floral. So it also obviously depends on when you're getting married, it depends on what look you're going for, and it depends on where you're getting married. So minimum budget for hiring a pro, I would say, is about $1,500. You might be able to swing it on $1,000, especially if you are in like a smaller town or something. But I would say $1,500. Especially if you are looking for a fuller floral look. So if you have a budget between like $1,500 and $3,000 for your florals and you're still not sure as to whether you want to hire a pro, I would say the other thing to take into consideration here is the time that it takes. If you don't have time to spend on this, I highly recommend just going for the pro. It'll definitely be worth it for you in the end to not stress yourself out and have to be in like a time crunch to get this done. Because wedding flowers take time. Doing your own flowers is going to take a ton of time. I'm just warning you now. It can definitely be worth it and it can be fun and everything, but if you're super slammed, super busy, and just not that into the DIY stuff, then I recommend just hiring a pro for this. And if your budget does come out where you are a little bit below where you need to be able to hire a pro, but you just don't have the time, I would suggest pulling from other areas and spending less money from other vendors to make this happen, just because it is such a huge time commitment and it is such a big piece of most weddings. All right, so let's talk about your options for doing your flowers yourself. There are several amazing companies out there now that you can order your floral package online and they show you what it's gonna look like. They put together like the recipe for you and they do everything for you other than put the flowers together. You put in your order and then you decide which package you want, which look goes best with your wedding, and then how many of each thing that you need, and then they will ship you the flowers 3 or 4 days usually before your wedding, sometimes up to a week. It can be up to a week, but so they'll ship you the flowers and then you will be responsible for cleaning the flowers up Usually they have videos on how to do this, and then putting them, all the centerpieces and all your bouquets together yourself. If this is super intimidating to you, if you're like, I'm not crafty or I'm not like design oriented, don't worry. They make it super easy. They tell you exactly how many of each flower goes in each thing. And there's videos online, and I'm sure I'll have a few videos coming up on doing this as well. But definitely don't worry about your skill level when you're trying to decide. I think that pretty much anybody can figure out how to do this. The options for doing your flowers yourself are either ordering a package that's already kind of pre-made from one of the online companies. I'll list several below. There are a few that I love working with and I've worked with several times, and I definitely think that it's worth it. Or the other option is to like do it completely from scratch yourself and get your flowers from like a wholesaler. I don't recommend option B to pretty much anybody unless you're gonna do something super simple. I recommend going with one of the companies online that already has pre-made packages, and you just pick the look and then they send you the flowers that you need to be able to make the bouquets. So when you're doing your flowers yourself, this takes a lot of time. And if you don't have experience with flowers, if you are trying to just do this completely from scratch by yourself, it's gonna be just a ton of work and a ton of time. So the sweet spot, I think, with wedding flowers is really the DIY packages from Bluminous or the Books Company, and there's a few more. I'll try to find a few more. Those are the two that I've worked with, and I've had great experiences with them, and they have beautiful packages to pick from. So I highly recommend just going with one of those if you are gonna do your flowers yourself. So basically, unless you really wanna go crazy with this and like plan the whole thing like completely from scratch, which I don't recommend. I'm not even going to talk about doing that in this video because it's just way too much, especially if you have no experience in floral. So basically it's either hire a pro or choose one of these DIY packages from somewhere like Bluminous or the Books Company. So things to keep in mind if you decide to do your flowers yourself. You are gonna get a lot more floral for your budget doing them yourself. It's just gonna take a lot of extra time. So if you are choosing this option, be sure that 2 days before your wedding, the entire day is blocked off for you to put together your flowers. Depending on how many you have and how many bridesmaids bouquets and all that stuff that you need to make, it may not take you the whole day, but I highly recommend just planning on doing flowers that day. Also, you need to put together a team to help you. I have done this for a bride by myself before, and it's just way too much to try to do it by yourself. You'll probably be doing flowers for like 8 to 10 hours if you're doing this yourself. So I highly recommend putting together a team, getting your bridesmaids, your mom, your partner's mom, basically anybody in on putting these flowers together that you can, so that you can get it done faster, because it ends up being just more work than you would think. But it can totally be fun. I love getting a bottle of champagne, doing mimosas, and kind of having like a flower party. It's fun to hang out and spend time together, and get these put together and kind of create your, like, it feels like you're really putting in the love and the work to create your wedding. So, and one more thing to take into consideration if you are trying to decide whether you want to do your flowers yourself is you really need a place to store the flowers once they arrive. I do not recommend doing your flowers yourself if you're like in a studio apartment downtown somewhere. You need a very cool, dark area where you can keep the flowers. The perfect setting is like a basement with little to no sunlight coming in, where you can kind of like bump up the AC and keep it really cool down there, because you do not want your flowers to get hot or they will look terrible by your wedding day. Also, I do not recommend putting them in your refrigerator. I have done this before, and the flowers in the back actually like froze a little bit because they're like right up against the wall, and that kills them, and they do not look good when they're dead. So you don't want to put them in your refrigerator. If you do not have a place to store them yourself, you might want to find a friend or somebody. This is just a major part of the planning that needs to come in if you are going to do your flowers yourself. You have to have a cool, dark place to store them for the few days before you put them together before your wedding day. If you don't have this and you don't have the space that you can kind of spread out and put all this together, then I recommend just going ahead and hiring a pro as well. I haven't done this before, but I think on a few of those websites, you can order the bouquets already made, as well as just a little bit more expensive. I'll have to double check on that for you though. I'll link them below, whoever I find that does do that, so that you just need to like store them and you don't have to put in the time and effort to put them together. So if your budget is less than $1,500 or less than $3,000, but you want a more full floral look than a full service florist can give you, then this is when you are going to want to put in the work and do your flowers yourself. One other option you have here, if you really want like more floral for your money, but you don't want to put it all together, I recommend doing kind of a hybrid. So you can hire a florist just to do like your ceremony arch and maybe your bridal bouquet, and then do the rest yourself. So it's kind of like the biggest, hardest parts are done by the florist, and then you can put together the other ones yourself, and so you're kind of splitting the work. Obviously, it is going to be a little bit more expensive doing it that way, but it might be worth it to you, especially if you're worried about your bouquet not turning out how you want it to. You can totally just hire a florist to do that piece, and then get your bridesmaids bouquets, your centerpieces, and any other floral you might need from the DIY company. I recommend picking your floral package from the DIY site before you book your florist, just so that you can show them what it's going to look like and make sure that they can make it all coordinate and go together. I think this is my favorite option because then they'll be there to hang the arch floral, especially if you're doing something elaborate for that. You don't want to be like climbing ladders on your wedding day. Your day of coordinator or wedding planner, if you have one, might be able to help you with this. I always helped my brides with this when I was doing that. So you might be able to kind of like put it together and have them just hang it. But it's super nice if you have the budget and if you are looking for something more elaborate to just have the florist take care of that piece so you don't have to worry about it. I hope this video was helpful in your decision-making process. I definitely will be putting together a ton more videos on wedding florals. This is just such a huge topic that this video could go on for hours if I cover every little piece. So I'm just gonna try to break it down into a few different videos. So be sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss any of those or any of my other wedding planning content. I come out with new videos every single week, every single Wednesday, so be sure that you're subscribed for that. Please give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful in your decision-making process, and also share it with your bride friends as well. All right, and we'll see you next time. Happy planning!